Okay, I've got some sound here, and I'm going to go over to the uh, website. And I started early. I've got one. See who just joined me here. Glad to see you, Grant. I'm starting early because I know that if folks need to, they can bump out early, uh, and then they can always catch up on the front end of everything. And so I'm just going to go ahead and do that because Zoom will give me some notifications I've got people waiting to join. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that. I want to just quickly kind of do just the usual housekeeping stuff, and so that we all know where we're at. And again, Grant, thank you for joining, and I know we'll have some others who will come on board here. Let me look first. I want to first start at the announcements, and as you notice, these will have a screencast, then also an invitation, and the live class session that we're having for the 28th. This is an invitation for Thursday. Okay, so I'm gonna go back to the announcements here now. There's also an invitation here. The screencast that we did from the 21st, that we had covered Lunch's database 5 and 6. So today we're going to work on Lunch's database 7 and maybe even get to 8. So let me go back to the announcements here. And so we're going to cover Lunch's 7 and 8. And then hopefully Thursday we can cover 9. I'm going to try to get through 7 and 8, and I believe we can. Now, if you hear something in the background sounds like something is snoring, it's our old dog, Poppy. She's about 9 or 10 years old. She's a rescue, what they call it, something Snicker Poodler. She's part Schnauzer, part Poodle. Anyway, she's an old dog, and she's here, and she snores loud when she sleeps. So trust me, it's not me. It's the dog, and she has to perch anywhere I am. So I apologize about that, but what can I say? Anyway, we're going to take a look at case number 7, and I want to just go down here for a moment to the modules. All right, and there's the welcome module, and I'm going to scroll on down here to today, and of course we're working here at 9/26/28. Today is of course the 26th. I'll open this up real quickly. Now, I've got something there. I'm going to hide that for a minute because it's irrelevant. You don't need it. But we've Lunch's database 4 and 5 and 6 should be uploaded here by the 28th. And I have some resources here that I want to just take a minute to let everybody know about. I always try to provide these kinds of things, especially since I have an online classroom that I can curate and send people to. And I think they're just so very apropos given what's happening right now down in Houston, what's happening in Houston, East Texas, and then Western Louisiana, Florida, and now the U.S. Virgin Islands, the Pacific, and then Puerto Rico, entirely almost just terrible. And so those folks who develop these databases are really going to work now, and what will pay off is that they'll start to get some momentum going. One of the interesting things, if you watch CNN with the earthquake that occurred, and I think I sent everybody an email with a link to the New York Times, which showed did a beautiful graphic of showing how Mexico City sits on top of an old dry lake bed, and how that and then the areas of shaking that occurred. Now, they got the data from sensors, and we have sensors all over, particularly in earthquake prone places, there are sensors everywhere to pick stuff up. And so they were able to chart that data and put it and show that those red streams, and the more intense, the deeper the red, which really gives them an opportunity to come back later and put a layer on top of that of buildings and streets, etc., before the earthquake, so they can figure out what to do. And in some of these areas, like say Puerto Rico, everything's gone. The only way you know where you are is by using GPS, and that's only if you're a rescuer or you're there and you've got a device, you know, that's got some kind of satellite internet access. Maybe I think some parts of Puerto Rico have communications. Well, that all being said, I just wanted to say, you know, I didn't plan it like this, but I always like to give everybody a chance to see. And having gone through the tornado of 13 and been involved a lot in the work here, in the relief work, through my church here at First Moore, and then having been involved in some disaster recovery efforts in the past, I can tell you that databases are indispensable tools in getting those things taken care of. So I want to let you know about it, and especially the Southern Baptist Disaster Relief, their board, and the Baptist General Convention. I can't say enough about how good they are. The day of the tornado in 2013 was a Monday right after commencement. I barely missed being caught by that thing by about 2 or 3 minutes. And so as I was driving west, the tornado was heading east. And let me tell you, I won't, you know, it was a harrowing experience. And I frankly thought I was going to die. And if I had not had my radio on to the local TV stations, I would have driven right into the thing. That being said, as the recovery set in, my church, which is First Church Moore, sits right there at 27th Street and I-35, and we became the triage place. And the first people on the scene, the Baptist General Convention, and within an hour and a half, they had a trailer set, they had hot food, they had blankets, boots, water, all kinds of things. And I was absolutely shocked at how well they were there and ready to go. And then as we populated through, as the insurance companies and FEMA and other people, it became apparent. So I had to help develop a database of what everybody had, who was where. We created maps so we could walk people through the first floor of our church, and they could go seamlessly from the start to the end as they came in to get relief help, and then handling inbound supplies. And I would say this also: the generosity of the American people is unbelievable. It's beyond belief. I was there on a Friday afternoon. I guess it's about 3:30, and I took a phone call. And I was helping handle all the inbound logistics. This is all the stuff coming in, and I had a guy call and said, "Listen, I'm coming. I've got a semi-trailer load of shoes and power saws and shovels and water and salt tablets." And it was unbelievable. Well, I had to call down to our guys at our church, and our deacons and the people were incredible. We probably had 400 or 500 people who volunteered and worked. We had a lot of retired people who worked 2-3 weeks at a time. One of the other things I did was trying to kind of get people reunited, because we were getting phone calls from all over the country with people. I'm trying to find Aunt Helen. She was over on whatever street and address. And so we'd go out there, and we got permission to go in right afterwards. And all I can say is the only thing that equates to what I saw there was what I saw. And to think that an entire island looks like the block, several square miles of more, that hurt. Both are tragedies. But the only way we could navigate was we had a cell phone. That was the only way I knew where I was. So the databases are extremely critical, and I've included these so you can see how valuable these tools are. And let me say this, many of you are going to leave school looking for something to do and maybe have a job interview or two. I can't think of anything more meaningful that you could do than maybe go to work for a disaster relief agency or the Red Cross or someone like that. And you know, the worst that can ever happen is you put in a resume and they turn you down. But I think there's, I found it to be so fulfilling, and it was just an incredible summer and fall as we worked through that whole process. Well, that all being said, I see, you know, Grant, it's still you and me. That's okay. We're going to have some folks join us here, I'm certain. So I've got these sources here for you to take a look at, everybody, and I hope that you will. As you could see, there's trying to catalog what we've done and how to get resources, etc. That is, you know, that's a priority number one. And let me say this also, you know, Walmart absolutely amazed us. The people at Walmart and the people at Home Depot, and which got damaged, Lowe's, Home Depot didn't get damaged, it was Lowe's that got damaged, but they came and they provided materials. The people at Walmart called and said, here's the stuff people will need the first week, and they were, so it's just unbelievable how that all came together. And I saw how the database, how important databases are, and things like GPS and the ability to track stuff and all of that. And so when we asked people, we got with the FEMA people, and we asked people who, when people would call and say, I want to bring stuff in, we linked them over to FEMA so they could register what they were bringing, who they were, and when they thought they'd be arriving, and information like, you know, what kind of car you'll bring, what kind of, are you going to be coming in a truck or whatever, because you know, it was a madhouse up there until we really got it organized and going on. That being said, we're going to take a look at number 7, and so let's go over to the files, okay? And I see someone else joined Grant and I. Let me mark on that for a second. There's Grant, and whoever you are at 214, welcome. And I'm going to mute you, so you know, if the dog barks or something, things are good. Now, let's go down here and let's go find the Patrick materials, as we usually do. Okay, and so we'll find that. We want to look for that, the Patrick materials, and here it is, the zip code. And we want to download that to our desktop. And now what I'm going to do is throw it on top of my nasty desktop. You see all the stuff I've got, lots of stuff. And by the way, this gives me a chance to plug something real quickly. I'm going to do that shamelessly. I've developed a course for J-term called Business Goes to the Movies. So if over J-term you're going to need some extra credit, I have this course. I think it's going to be online. I think it'll be a fun one. Well, that being said, I've got SQL Fun downloaded already on my desk. There's, of course, this Cardinal Buddy. Of course, he's not happy. He's not going to make the playoffs this year. And then I have my code for the chapters. You'll want to download that to your desktop. And we're going to open up SQL Fun. And as I said before, we've been doing this concept using this data warehousing concept. And we have all of these dimension tables. And what we're doing is we're creating fact tables running a series of queries. Okay. And what you'll do is today is you'll save this as you can save it as case. You can put it as LD7 for lunches database 7 and then upload it. And we'll need the code for that, and so we'll open this up, and there's the access code, and we're going to take a look at chapter 7. Okay, and there we go. Now I'm going to put this up full screen to hide that nasty looking desktop I've got. Oh, I have so much junk I need cleared up, and that's my fault, nobody else's. Now over on chapter 7, it talks about formats, sequences, and indexes, and it covers some more discussions about the data dictionary and so forth. And so I'm just whipping through the pages here. I think, you know, in terms of, and they talk about entering formatted dates, and over here on page 250, well, before we go any further, go over to page 247 in the textbook, okay? And they talk about formatting of dates. And dates are very difficult, and they show you the Oracle and Access date formats. Why are they difficult? Because they're actually numbers, but by the same time token, they're not, because they signify a particular day. So they're like a label as opposed to a number. And so we have to really struggle with computer to make sure it understands this. I'm working with a label and I'm not working with a number, although we want to be able to use them as both. Now, there on page 250 is a 7.2, okay? And I want to just highlight this for you here. And let's look at it and notice what we've got going on here. They have the Access SQL formatted using the single quotes, and you'll see there's a note over there, okay? And what we're going to do is we're going to select the employee ID, the first name, the hire date, and then we're going to format the hire date, and then we're going to give it a name as formatted date from the employees. Okay, so we're going to grab this, and I think we're going to run into some problems if I'm not mistaken, because I think we always have to do it. Now I'm going to click Create, and I'm going to go to Query Design. I'm going to close this off. I'm going to the SQL view, and let's run this. And I didn't get the whole select, so I'll get an error on that. And let's run the query and see what we got. There we go. Now we used a column alias, okay? He said, what do you mean? Well, let's go back down real quickly to the SQL view, and this is where we said as formatted date. And when you see that, that means we're doing we're running a column alias. We're doing an alias. Now I'm going to save this as 7-2, okay? And so they're just going to show us the hire date and then the formatted date. And here we have the date, which includes the day and the time. And we have one person who doesn't have anything. So that's going to be 7-2, and we'll save it as such. And that's over there from page 250. Now, over on page 252, they give us some more examples. And at the bottom of page 252, you're going to see we use an insert query, and then we're going to insert some values. And notice that the date is enclosed with pound signs. So this is another way that we can do this. So we're going to do this we're going to try to do this insert query. Okay, this is 7.3. And then we're also going to use the now function. You've seen us use this. We have used the now function in Excel. It works pretty much the same way in Access. So we'll click. We're going to close this off for a sec. Go to the SQL, and then we're going to run an insert query. We run it. It's going to say you're about to append one row, and we'll go OK. And notice now up here, what just happened? The toolbar gave me feedback or a breadcrumb. It said, hey, you just did an append query. And notice before the append executed, it said, hey, chump, you're about to add a row here. So we've done that, and if we went in and looked at that table, 0703s underscore lunches, you'd find those values that have been entered. And then we use the now function, and it would give today's date. And let's just see what that looks like. So we'll click the video, and we'll have to pull these expressions out. Okay, and there it is. And remember, we did the now function, and it said, okay, we do use the now function, and we did. And it gave us 9/26/2017, 12:39.49 p.m. And there we are. So that one's going to be 7-3, so we'll save it as 7-3. Okay? So we're just doing some inserts and some things of that nature. Not that big of a deal. And you should have a pretty good comfort level. Now, one of the things I want to note to you is they give you a lot of information about Oracle and then format and access. And if you take a look over at page 255, you're going to see the access GUI, okay? And that's going to be the access GUI, and they're going to show you that table design. Now, look, most commercial products, as well as a semi-commercial product like Access, will let you use a GUI, in other words, graphic user interface, and actually go in and do the formatting. Okay, so you don't have to write queries to reformat everything. You can do that. And there at the bottom of page, at bottom page 255, they show you formatting a phone number. Okay, and from an employee, then they show you the result table. So I don't see any real reason. If you want to run that and put it in, be my guest. Okay, copy it and run it. Be my guest. Now we come to some stuff that's important for you to understand. Okay, and they talk about it in the context of Oracle, but it's really better thought of as in the context of a database. And that's the concept of sequences, okay? And sequences are exceptionally critical for a very simple reason. They are what we use to make certain that each row has a separate, i.e. unique identifier. In fact, the authors talk about there at page 257. Now, I'm one of those people that says, I like an auto number. Actually, I like a double key. What do you mean? A double primary key. What I like is an auto number, and that way I know how many records I have. And then I like some kind of user ID or something like that. That way, it's truly unique in that it's sequential. And it's truly unique in the sense that it's an ID that's unique just to that person. That's just me. But we do this, of course, to make sure that we have the ability to pull tables together. Okay. Now, they talk about creating a sequence in Oracle. Again, we can create a sequence in SQL. In Access by just simply going in and doing an auto number, and they show you that there on page 261. Chapter 7 is pretty light in terms of running a lot of queries, but it's got some important stuff in it in the sense of key ideas. One of them is over on page 262 and covers 263, and that's the idea of indexing. Okay, and the whole idea of indexing is just providing some guidance to the machine of where and how to start and do its search. Otherwise, it will go row by row by row by row. But if you create an index, you can direct the machine as it searches, as it goes through a search process of where to go. And the authors do a pretty decent job of talking about that. Now, they talk about the fact that it will speed up the size of your selects there at the bottom, 662, but there is a change. There's a trade-off. It might slow down some changes that are made to the data. And then they talk about creating an index, okay? And they show you a create index there in SQL. The truth is, you can do the indexing in Access. It's already built in. And the reason I call it a semi-commercial product is because it has some of those features, okay? It has an index that's built in because it assumes a lot of its end users are not going to be astute enough or that much into databases. They just want a tool, okay? They want something that works. They don't want to know how the drill was made or the alloys. They just want to know the drill drills and does its thing. Then they talk about the optimizing, okay, and again, this is just a way to get to improve the performance of the index. And then the authors give you a good example of how an index works, and I think it would be wise for you to take a look at that, and so you can see how is it that somebody like Google, you know, can have millions of searches, hundreds of millions of searches every single day and handle them so easily, and it's because they've got the secret sauce. The authors talk some more about the data dictionaries again, and then they talk about finding information on sequences. It's obvious how to do it with Access. Almost every commercial product you work with, okay, unless you serve as a database administrator, frankly, a lot of this will just be working behind the scenes for you, okay? And but it's important for you to understand that and to know that, just simply so you can have an intelligent conversation with the IT people. So as I said to you, chapter 7 is last time is frankly it's pretty light. It's heavy on contextual stuff and understandings and stuff. They show you the Access GUI there at 274, and you can see there's a primary key and then a unique phone number. You remember I talked about double keys, okay? And they talk about how to find all the information about all of your database objects. And the author runs a query in Oracle. He's old school. He wants to know you can run a query. The truth is, all of those objects are today with object-oriented programming and the approach on iconic presentation, that changes things. You say, what do you mean? Well, these are icons up here, and then we have a drop-down menu. Okay, underneath each of these icons, these are pictures that execute a particular command or invoke a certain function. And so we can just look up here and go, okay, I'm going to design a form. In the old days, you wrote the code to do that. So you know, be thankful that you don't live in the good old days. I remember once I said to my grandfather, how was it in the good old days? He said, we didn't have air conditioning, so they weren't such good days in Oklahoma. And I understand, and I kind of got it. I understood what he was saying, okay? Now, over on page 279, I want to show you something here. The author walks you through kind of a semi-fun thing. This is an exercise where the very first thing you do, and this is 718, and you create a table called My Days, okay, and it has a sequence ID counter, okay, and it has an event text and then a date and time. And then the next one is you alter the table, okay, And then you do another insert query and another insert query and another insert query and then yet another. And so you go through, and if you're doing those inserts and then that final select statement, you're doing 7 queries. All of that to get the result table at the bottom of page 278, bottom of page 279. Your birthday, the day you graduated from college, and your wedding. Okay, and he has his particular dates there. Okay, a lot of work to do that. A lot of code to write when you probably could just create a form and do it much easier. See, now you understand why I've said over and over, we have forms and we have those objects for a particular reason. Let's go ahead and just try the code there for 718. And there's the code. There it is. It's the access code itself. And I want the code. There it is. Let's go down to 718. Let's just just create the table. And we'll see what we've got. You say, why couldn't I just create the table and using the table design? You could. And if you're thinking yourself, if you're asking yourself those questions, you get it. And it says there we did a data definition, which means we created a table. That's why the data definition there lit up, because we engaged in some data definition. Let's go down and find this 0710 my days. And here it is. We'll open it up. There it is. My event, my date. And we can go down to the design view. We see it's an auto number, and then text, and then a date and time format. Sequence counter, my event date. So we'll close the table, and you can save this as 718. Okay. And let's see, we got the 4 of us, Grant and Carolyn as well. Glad to have you back. And again, everybody, I started early. Okay, so you can always catch this on the back end. And since I did start early, if you have to bug out, you know, I understand. Don't worry about it, because that's why I record the lectures. All right. And that really does take care of chapter 7. That's pretty much it. So, which is a good segue for us then to chapter number 8. Okay. And I'm going to close this off for a second. And then I'm going to open up and go back here and get the access code, excuse me, for chapter 8. So let's open it up. Okay. And here we're going to look at the issue of data integrity. Now, if you look at the contents of the table, okay, you're going to see that it works, that it's a process that follows a process. And the first is we build constraints on the table, okay? And by building constraints in a table, that means we build the kinds of possible data that can be entered. So we enter the data only as we've planned for it to be entered. Otherwise, the record won't save. Then we begin the process of referential integrity. And that means we can link up tables because we can match them. They have matching components. And that's the whole idea of referential integrity. And then we go back, then they give us some issues in terms of deleting stuff, getting rid of it if we need to, and then some variation, and then how code constraints are handled in a create table statement. Now, page 254, for all intents and purposes, tells you everything you need to know about at least access, and probably if you were working under the hood with the commercial products that are out there, it'd be the same. The access UI. Notice there that on the price, okay, on that table, we have two constraints, three really, two constraints. Pardon me. Number one, it's got to be in currency format, and number two, it has to be less than 10. And notice there's a validation text that says price exceeds $10. So there's nothing equal to or greater than $10 that's allowed in that there. And that creates a unique constraint. Now, he shows you Oracle SQL, how to accomplish it, but you can accomplish it in the Access GUI. Here's another one on page 286, okay, and that is, yes, that you have phone numbers, okay, and then the phone numbers are indexed and no duplicates, which means every phone number in every record is unique. No two records share the same phone number, okay. Now, when I first started teaching college a long time ago, we used to have one phone on every department, so this would not have worked. And you couldn't even, to make a long distance call. This is before they had web-based phones like we have at school. You had to go get the permission of the dean to place a long distance call, or the dean's secretary would come upstairs and she'd stand there with the number and you'd tell it to the operator and you'd make the call. And you'd want to know why and all this stuff. Today, with these web-based phone systems, and certainly with your cell phone, you can call just about anywhere. At least in the United States, pretty cheap. Now, page 257 walks you through again. In this case, it's the employee ID and it's required, and then it's indexed, no duplicates. Now, this chapter is important to me because if you don't get referential integrity straight and data integrity, you've got a mess on your hands, because you can't have what we call normalized data, and you certainly cannot have data that you can rely on, because you don't have unique records. When you have unique records, then you're good to go. Now, we're going to run this first alter table statement here. Okay, and this is let me stop that for a minute. If you take a look, a lot of time, and you do this, folks, you really ought to have your textbook with you. Okay. And I hope you do, because I'm going to refer to it again because it's like a handbook, and you need to have it with you. Page 290 shows you the concept of referential integrity. Notice the lookup table, which you saw we did that before in 1123. We created some lookup tables. And then they are basically foreign keys embedded in a data table that gives you the information you want. They talk about the parent, the child, all that. You already knew all that stuff. Then they give us an example of RI. Now, we're going to alter a table here, and the table is going to be 0805 underscore employees. So I'll copy that, and we're going to click Create, Query Design. Go over here to SQL, and we're going to alter the table, and we're going to run it. It says the primary key already exists. Well, what we were going to do is add a PK into that. So let's look at 08 employees. Okay, and we'll do this. Let's scroll over here. 0805 employees. There it is. I'll open this jewel up, and then I'm going to go down here to the design view. and I'm going to remove the primary key. And I'm going to close it and save it. Now, let's run our query and see if it will do its bidding. And we'll click run. Okay. And the query should have exercised. So let's go back and see now on that employees. Let's see if we got a primary key. And we do. Isn't that magical? Now look, I could do this in the GUI a lot easier and faster than writing the code, but that's okay. We're going to save this as 8-5. Okay. And so we created some code. Now let's go ahead and we'll look some more here. We've got 8-5 and we got, okay. And now we're going to insert some values. You say, why can't we just use a form to do this? Precisely. One of the problems you run into with an insert statement like this is you may miss a field. And if you put the wrong data in the wrong sequence, you don't have the fields that match, you get all kinds of problems. Let's see what happens. And I always hold my breath on these when I say to myself, I could just have a form and input the data there. And frankly, your employees won't be writing code, not many of them. And so we'll click create, query design, close this SQL off, the SQL. And we're going to insert this into, we're going to insert these values. Let's see what happens. It says you're about to append when rows and null to data conversion failure. So this is what I'm talking about. We get this kind of craziness. And we're working with the employees table. Let's open it up for a moment and look at the design view. I'm going to take this, I want to look at this real quick, insert into values 201, which would be an employee number, Cheryl, which would be a first name, Rose, which would be the last name, okay, sales, and then we've got null, 3484, null. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And it wouldn't work for us because it would not accept nulls. So you see, if we're going to do that, it's much, much easier. So if you want, you can save it as 8. What is this silly thing? We're working on 8.5. But as they tell us, we're going to get an error message. But we'll close it in. Okay. Get that. Let's just close that and don't worry about it. Now, eight and 9 is another one of those that's got some issues. Now, if you go look over at page 294, you're going to see that 810 number 1, 810 number 2, and 810 number 3. I'll go over to 810. Here's 810 1, 810 2, 810 number 3. We're just basically inserting some data, okay, into the table. And again, we use a form to do this, okay? And that's why, you know, this is going to be pretty light for very simple. In fact, you could save this as Lynch's database 7 and 8 because we're going to get through here. Well, I'm going to try to insert these values into that table. Let's see what happens. And I'll click create, query design. We'll close it off. We'll do the SQL. It's about to append one row, and we did. So we inserted that in. Now, they want us to update that table. Okay. Now, this is the one time, look, when I'm putting in what I would call a record, which is what that is, okay? That's one thing, putting in a record using a form. If I'm going to change what we call a slowly changing dimension or a dimension, okay, then we may want to use an update query, because in this case we're going to set the code for the states to Washington, and we have where client ID is 200. Okay, we might have several of these that we need to update. Maybe they've changed the phone number. Maybe they have moved to a new state. Who knows? That's when it makes sense. If you're going to be if you're doing some batch record changing, I guess would be the only thing. Let's go ahead and before we do this, let's say this is 810. Okay, let's call it 810. We're okay there. Now, let's just pop up here for a minute. And we're going to insert into this. Now we're going to update the client. Well, we're just updating one client. So I'd use a form. Okay. As you can note, as you can tell, when you sit through these sessions with me, it is not my quest in life to sit and write computer code. I'm a manager. I'm a business person. I'm a decision maker. I'm not about writing code. Oh, I can do it, okay? But it's not. The code is a bus that takes me somewhere, okay? All of this technology, all these technology courses we have to take is very simple. So you have the tools to use, and you know how to use them and when to use them. And that you're able to communicate with the functional specialists who might be a vendor or might be in your company, how you can communicate with them more effectively, all right? And one of the things we've also learned is that these applications create business models. Now, I'm going to give you two examples. A database created the Facebook business model, created the Amazon database model, text messaging, okay? What we call short message service, an SMS, a text file is the underlying technology to a thing and a place called Twitter, okay? So that's just so that you understand and see some of that. All right, as we're flowing through chapter, as we're flowing through chapter 8, they show us how to change some of the code and using a lookup table, or if we have a lookup table, how to change that. So we're going to play around with this, and this is going to be 813. So let's pop down there to code 813. We insert this into the 3 values, California and Sacramento. So I'm going to click create, query design, the usual bit. I want to run it. About to append a row, and we did. So we're going. I'm going to save this as 8-13 -1. See if it'll let me say that, or I think it's a date. No, it did. Now we're going to run 813-2. I know, you couldn't wait. Here we go. We're going to update that client's field. And we'll click create, query design, close the SQL, boom, and we'll update it. We're about to update 2 rows. So now we've done 813, 8-13-2. And this is code that's at the bottom of page 298, where they show you the code, the beginning table, and then the beginning tables, and then the ending tables or result sets. And we're going to do 813 number 3. Might as well. It's a party. What can I say? And let's see, we want to delete from the 813 states. So we're going to do we're going to get California. California has had a, we're going to get rid of them. They've said they want out, so we're going to let them be their own country. They're going to fall in the sea, or who knows. What craziness is floating around out there today. Click to delete, and we're about to delete our own. Well, yeah, so we did, and that would be 8-13 dash. I guess this would be -3. Do we have a 3 here? No, we don't. We'll call it 8-13-2 and be done with it. Now, over on page 300 through 301, the author's cover stuff, and 302, in fact, cover stuff you already know about how to create entity relationships. They walk you through, the putting files into the relationships box and then combining them. And we're gonna do this here. And let's go up here and look at database tools and look at relationships. And there they are. Okay. And they have us take a look at the states and the clients tables. So here's the states. Here they are. Here's the states. Here's the clients table. Okay, and notice that the state code is the primary key, and then it's a foreign key in the clients table. And we can click on this little thing right here, edit relationship, and there we are. They talk about deletes. I don't know how relevant that's really going to be to you. And again, over on 304, the delete cascade. Well, let's click right here. Edit the relationship. Now, this says that they have to match. It's referential integrity, and it's an inner join. How do I know? Well, I just know it, but here it is. Now, if we put cascade update related fields, what it means is when we update a field, every table will all get updated, every record. If we click cascade delete related records, okay, that's a different critter, because in that case, what we've done is we're going to delete a bunch of stuff. So enter into either one of those with your heart in your throat, because if you destroy it or alter some legacy data, you will not be a happy camper. And then they show you the way to update that, and you can do that in Access GUI. I've told you, I've warned you, be careful about that. Then over in 311, they talk about the 2 meanings of a primary key. Okay, and they talk about the variations of referential integrity over in 311. And he talks about the two meanings of the primary key. And he talks about it in relation to what it means, the primary key means as far as a table is concerned. And then what a primary key means as far as referential integrity is concerned. And what the author is saying in kind of a long roundabout way is basically this. You use a primary key to make certain that every record in a table is unique. That's so you can normalize data and you don't get anomalies, etc. Then, when you take a primary key in one table and bury it in another as a foreign key, it becomes the cornerstone for referential integrity between tables. In other words, think of it, the word reference, okay, that means it matches. Imagine if you went into, imagine if you went into the library. I know for some of you, what's a library? And you went to the card catalog. I know, what's a card catalog? And you went to look stuff up. And then you go there and they say, well, all the works on history are over in here. And you go there and the works on history aren't there. You don't have referential integrity. Okay? It's the same problem that you run into in a practical way when you're using your mapping on your phone, or you have a map, a map in your car, and you put in a destination and it doesn't recognize it. Maybe because Google hasn't been out there yet to get it mapped, or who knows. That's what the authors are saying in a very long and roundabout way. There on page 314, he alters the table so he can add a constraint and add a foreign key to the tables. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. That's 821. Let's close this off, and we'll close this here. And let's just see. We'll go down here to 821. Let's try to run this query. We're going to alter the 821 lunch items table. We're going to add a constraint, a foreign key. And then the foreign key will be the supplier ID, product code, and it references back to the foods table. That's what it's telling us. Let's see what happens. So we'll click Create, Query Design, we'll close that with the SQL, boom, and we'll run it. And there we go. And we altered the table. How do I know? The data definition went hot. Okay. Over on pages 316 to 318, they talk about naming constraints, and he walks you through a whole, like a create table statement with all of it, when you could go in and do that in the GUI so much earlier. If I wanted to torture you, I'd make you do this, okay? But I'm not. And there's some stuff in there that's not correct on his code anyway. And it'll just give you a headache figuring it out. For example, Access does not support the check constraint. Okay, so that check constraint, it doesn't support that. So you'd be scratching and go, what happened? It doesn't support it. And over on 318, again, you can use captions for first names and last names if you want to hide them. And I've got in the book here why I had to do all kinds of machinations to get that done. Okay, now, so we've covered chapter 8 Okay, and I'm going to say this. I'm going to call it 8 dash last dash query dash n dash 8 dash last query dash n last. I'm doing dashes instead of underscores. Okay, that's all. Now we moved a little faster than I thought we would. Okay, and well, I always end up in this dilemma because chapters 7 and 8 are really kind of lightweight chapters for all intents and purposes. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to save chapter 9 to actually execute stuff. So what I want you to do is I'm going to close all of these, and you'll want to save yours as Lunch's database, or LD 7 and 8, and upload it in 7 and upload it in 8. Okay, because it gives me an opportunity now to stop jabbering about some of the code, and to give you hopefully kind of a decent introduction into row functions. Now, when we create a table, okay, a table, as you know by now, is a collection of columns. It's a collection of attributes or some type of data. And so there are times when we want to get data from the table, but we want to get it from rows. Okay? And they show us that there on page 323, where we get data directly from the beginning table. And then we end up with a result table. Okay? And so those little squares on that beginning table, that's what got selected. And that is what ends up over in the result table. Now, in 324, he defines a row function. And these are, as he says, row functions calculate or construct a new value that's not in the beginning table. And he shows us that pictorially there in 324. And then over in 325, he walks us through that process of, we have a beginning table, we create a new column by applying the row function to every row, and then we select the data that we want, and that gives us the result table. And so we're working horizontally. We're working through row functions. Now, we're going to also come to a point where we work with what we call aggregate functions, and those will involve columns. And this brings me to a very important point. When we get into these, they're interesting to a certain extent, but my word of advice to you is, if you end up with the result table, it may be to your it may be best for you to take that result table and export it out to Excel, where you can do some more mathematical gymnastics with it if you have to. Okay? This doesn't mean a lot until you end up with a table of 1,000 clients and they want something total or this or that, and then you'll remember, oh yeah, take it and export it into Excel where I can work with it. Because this is a database, not a spreadsheet. Okay? Access does what it is. Now, there are products out there. Tableau is one of them. I've talked about that. The SAS Visual Analytics is another one of them, that are trying to get the best of both worlds, the best of a database and the best of a spreadsheet. Okay, so that's pretty much it, and we'll walk through chapter 9. We'll do a lot of running of queries because it sets us up once we do the row functions, then it sets us up to be able to do column functions. Okay? And again, row functions and column functions, in my mind, are a way to create result tables that I can then take and do some analytic work, some mathematics with it, maybe do some predictive work, and maybe apply some statistics that would be difficult to do in a database. Okay? Well, I think we've been going at this for a while here, and we've made some progress. We did chapter 7 and chapter 8. We kind of segued into chapter 9. And so I feel like at this stage of the game, we've done pretty good. And we've got this recorded. Now, again, those of you who might have come in a little bit late, you can double back and see the the first of the recording. And what I'll do is I'll stop share, and then stop the recording and end the meeting, and then record it and post it. Okay. And you know, we're ending maybe. I think we've gone. I think we've gone nearly a whole hour, and I think we're close to an hour and 15 minutes. But trust me, I'll get my pounds of flesh out of you. There's chapter 9, and will be exciting. Okay, so that's it for today, and then I will see everybody on Thursday. And let me just pop back up here for a moment, and let's go back over to the modules area. Okay, and let's see on the syllabus what we've got coming up. And for the 28th, okay, which is Thursday, you have lunches database 4, 5, and 6, which you've done. And then notice we're already up here into October the 12th. And so we're working ahead pretty diligently. Now I'm going to look at the modules for a moment, because this is the module of this week, the 28th, 28th. And close this off for a minute. There you see all those, and let me say this, it's worth visiting these different places. I could have taken you on a kind of a web safari and showed you, but I really think it'd be a good idea for you to go over and take a look at them. Okay? And then next week, we'll be doing some more work, and we'll be talking about SAS Visual Analytics, which you're going to get a chance to use. Show you what's over there at Code Academy about learning SQL or any type of other codes, and then trends in data warehousing, information builders, and an interesting article about data revolution in fielding in baseball. If you're a baseball fan, you know baseball fans are stat freaks, number freaks. They count every conceivable thing. And here's an interesting article about using analytics in terms of fielding. Okay, and there's some agenda there for all class. And I'm going to publish it. You don't need it really. All right, my friends, thank you so much. Enjoyed it. And I will see everybody on Thursday. So I'll stop the share and then stop the recording and then end the meeting.